Maybe next time. One person. Guys, this is our last presentation. Oh, there you go. But it's Simon Devitt. Yeah. So Simon is a globally recognized photographer specializing in architecture photography and is currently based in Wellington, New Zealand. His extensive work has led him around the world. Accomplishing his craft, Simon has published award-winning photo books, and his images have been featured in numerous books, collaborations, and in major international publications. For a decade, Simon lectured on architectural photography at the University of Auckland and established the annual Simon Devitt Prize for Photography. This is our last speaker. Please give him a large round of applause and welcome to the stage, Simon Devitt.
Thanks, Matthew. Thanks, Jordan and the gang, for having me. It was a long journey to get here, certainly worthwhile. So getting to spend time with all of you guys, some familiar faces from the past, from mentorships, from workshops, and then some new faces that I've had a lot of fun and enjoyment talking to you. So thank you. Let's start. The sunshine's made an appearance. Hopefully you guys over there can see over here, maybe. If not, have at it. I won't read what Matthew just read. That's interesting. Speaking of logos earlier, that's mine. A place isn't a place is a place in time. We trust our eyes too much. Black is where everything begins and everything ends. We know what everything is because of black. It is the result of complete absence or absorption of light, and it is the combination of all color. The last color we see before we close our eyes at night is red. And when we wake up in the morning, the first color we see again is yellow. Blue is the light that got lost. Light at the blue end of the spectrum does not travel the whole distance from the sun to us. It disperses among the molecules in the air and it scatters in water. Blue is the color of distance and the color of longing, and it's the light that gets lost. In this figure, the red parts of the Union Jack have been swapped for cyan, the dark blue parts have been swapped for yellow, and the white has been swapped for black. I'll ask you now, each of you, to concentrate, if you will, on the very center of this Union Jack for 30 seconds. Then switch your gaze to the wall or close your eyes. For a fleeting moment, you'll see the after image of a Union Jack in its true colors. How many of you saw the Union Jack? Nice. This guy here, this is an impossible trident, also known as an impossible fork. It's a devil's tuning fork. It's a kind of optical illusion, an impossible object. It appears to have 3 cylindrical prongs at one end, which then mysteriously transform into 2 rectangular prongs at the other end. If you look at it for long enough, you'll go cross-eyed. So Gary, just take it easy, okay? How many legs does this elephant really have? Count them carefully. And then count once more. Does anyone want to have a go? rather than being mistakes of our visual interpretation. An optical illusion like this, it's really a clever design change on the part of the artist. We cannot make sense of the elephant's legs in this simple line drawing. Only his left back leg. This leg is correct. The others have had their feet removed and placed between their original forelegs so that he has 4 original legs, only one with a foot attached, and 4 other legs with 4 feet. The effect is truly mind-boggling. And if you did follow that, buy a lotto ticket. You will probably win. Pleiades, it's the closest star cluster to Earth. It's in the southern hemisphere, so unless you've been down that way lately, you won't have seen it at all. It's a blue cluster of 7 stars, also known to us down that way as the Seven Sisters. And if you're in a position where the sky is dark enough and you look directly at it, you won't see it. But if you look just away from it, it's there. We see far more than we hear, smell, or touch. We are deluged by the visual. The other senses have it easy. We only hear what makes a sound. We only smell what gives off a scent. We only touch what makes physical contact. Perhaps that is why our vision is so good at concentrating on the thing at hand, at filtering out the noise. The eye cannot afford passively to drink in the scene before it. We would drown in the chaos. So our eyes, they must select and they must hunt. I spent some time with lighting designer David Trubridge some years back. He was recounting to me some of his stories from years he and his family spent living on various Pacific islands. And he talked to me in great detail about a story that a waka builder told him. And it was about the great voyages his ancestors took across vast oceans made on handmade boats called waka. And these boats varied in size and had crew that varied from a dozen or so to about 30. And everyone on the waka had a job to do. Everyone moved about the vessel to do their job and contribute to the great voyage they were making. So as they moved about, the world occurred to them that they were moving through the world, except for one person, the navigator. The navigator used a star stick chart, much like this, to read the stars and ensure they were headed in the right direction. Their job meant they were the only person on the vessel that didn't move. Their job was to be still. And so the world occurred to them that the world moved past them. It's quite a subtle but very important distinction to make about how I am in the world when I'm making pictures. I carry that story around, and many others, as gems or treasures for my treasure hunt. 1982. It's probably only Stephen Carlish that will have a memory of 1982, but I'll talk to you about that later, Matt. My mum also has a memory of this. Bless her. She discovered this relic. Quite embarrassing. I'm quite glad I'm a photographer because that perspective drawing sucks. There's supposed to be a bridge with water going under it, guys, so bear with me. I'll read it out to you. I am 1 meter 40 centimeters in height of my body. I like making electronic things. I dislike not having luck with things. I am 9.5 years of age and have blue eyes. I have white hair, which is making a strong comeback. I like to draw my own types of pictures. 2, I am very happy when I get luck with things. I would like to be a good person. I like holidays because you can just relax and do what you like. I get sad when I see graveyards. And 3, I want to be an artist and design houses. A photograph is a constantly renewable source of energy. It's fair to say I grew up on the set of The Days of Our Lives. My home and my backyard were in a brand new suburb called Conifer Grove, in South Auckland, New Zealand, built on flat ex-racehorse land and crop farms on an inlet deep in the Manukau Harbour. It was cul-de-sac, bookending cul-de-sac, each named after an old racehorse. Perhaps the most inspiring memory with which I left high school was that of a teacher who opened my eyes to how I could view the world through a camera. And this made a lasting impression, and I gradually started imagining what it might be like to be a photographer. I had a curious beginning. That's not me in that picture, by the way. I'm not 160. But I did have a curious beginning printing police forensic photography. And while not for the faint-hearted, the crime scene pictures revealed stories which unfolded from a minute account into full detail. I later experienced the thrilling challenge of capturing energy and decisive moments in a foray into professional sports photography. I've developed a unique approach from the combination of storytelling and dynamism of these early professional experiences and the processes which have evolved from them, all of which has informed my current practice as a photographer of architecture over the past 2.5 decades. A deep awareness that there are always new ways of seeing opens up an instinctive way of expanding the mind's experiences, identifying a demand for what you need, learning, absorbing, and applying it. For me, that powerful, naive energy, the required constant growth, it's always been an imperative. Discovering knowledge from naivety and learning through necessity adds richness and textured complexity to the way I observe and create with a continually fresh perspective. Working all over the world has afforded me this ever-expanding sense of newness. Just as when I was photographing the skyline over the Bund in Shanghai one hot summer's evening, and I needed to achieve a real sense of place and an original perspective. I knew I had to get higher up off the ground, so I approached a restaurant to ask if I could go on their roof. To my surprise, they were as curious as I was and glad to help a stranger from New Zealand get the shot. It was like being on the set of Blade Runner, hot, humid, and very science fiction-esque. It was quite a unique and special moment. The past is contained within all things. For me, the family photograph sits at the very centre of my practice as a photographer. It sits as the foundation and provides the context for everything else I do. I blame my dad for provoking in me the curiosity that I now hold so dear. And I figure it's always good to be able to blame your parents. And it's because of the photographs he made of us as a family and the inevitable slideshows that resulted. But it's not just the pictures he made of just us as a family, it's what family photos represent and what they do that are so important. It's what they reveal in those moments and the memories they ignite that are so fervent we can almost touch them. Photographs we look at from times past that we may not recollect accurately, but remake a memory from our almost imagined past. And so memory provides again and allows us the opportunity to be seduced from its unreliable route to the present. I'm drawn to the places we inhabit and the things we do with those places. The placemaking, where we live, where we work, where we play. My dad always carried a camera around with him, and so I got to see how we all looked as a family projected as slideshows on the wall at home. For most kids, that would be really boring. For me, I was completely enthralled. I loved it. I still love a slideshow. As a photographer of architecture for the past 26 years, I've been able to see all different parts of the world, different types of people living and working in different places. It's never lost on me that a lot of these homes that I photograph are the result of a lot of hard work by the architect and the homeowner, and is often the result of someone's dream coming true. It's seeing a place transformed into a home or workplace and seeing that design come to life. As a photographer, making pictures that reveal something about how it feels to be there is really important to me. Pictures that have a tension. It has to have a feeling like something has happened or is about to happen. The pictures should ask of you or cause you to wonder, what happens next? So that you're compelled to turn the page or at least look at the next picture. The house isn't finished until the photographer has been. I've often been told by architect clients that I've seen more architecture than most architects. The difference is I'm not an architect. I'm a photographer of architecture. My eyes don't necessarily appreciate the technical detail, spot the mistakes, or see the architecture that could have been, or the architecture that is, the way an architect would. As a photographer, I see other things. I'm not married to the idea that the design even works. I turn up for the first time to witness layers of beauty, atmosphere, and moments. I see how the architecture serves its inhabitants, the landscape, and the community it occupies in real time. I go about recording these ingredients as a series of moments, a picture story containing a broader ideal, a single-minded proposition as seen and experienced by me. The camera can record what it sees. That part's reasonably self-evident. But the brief I give myself and what my very talented clients expect is to record how it feels to be there, the spirit of that place. And so it's with fresh eyes. I arrive early and I leave late, and there's a bit of making it up as I go. For me, it's that in-the-moment creativity that really excites me. I've been to hundreds of other shoots before this one, but never this one. So I arrive at a shoot armed with decades of experience as a photographer, but each time I show up anew, present, seeing and feeling the newness of this moment in this place. How do you show up with fresh eyes? Eyes absorb light, they don't reflect it. Clearly, we don't see or look the way a camera does. What we see is informed by experience, desire, ideology, and expectation. Moreover, what we see is governed by processes that are substantially unconscious. Speedy consumption is a way of avoiding the anxious standoff between how we look at the world and how a camera looks at the world. And we may be grateful that some photographs offer serious clues to spaces other than those we occupy, and often to eyes and minds other than our own. The camera is purely the mechanism that documents the visual element, an attempt to capture the real. But the other senses are profoundly important in how we interpret a scene. A sunset is already beautiful, and so therein lies the trap. How do you honor this beauty without merely describing it? As a photographer, my practice involves sitting still and seizing a glimpse of subtle gestures, moments, and brief encounters, which represent how it feels to be there. I want to hear it. I want to expose its heartbeat. I want to strip the image of the artificial. This is perhaps where my approach departs from what is conventionally expected. I always spend time being still in the environment. I wait to hear its breath. I listen as much as I watch. And this is how I find out what is really in the space, by letting myself be led by its mystery. Once upon a time, while on an assignment in Kamakura, Japan, I went in search of some context to add to the story of a house I was photographing. And I hadn't gone far when I found myself in a truly magical bamboo forest. There was no one around at all until I heard the rustling of footsteps ahead. A Japanese businessman was passing through. He must have felt that he had the whole forest to himself, as he suddenly stopped, raised his head, and yelled for all he was worth. I would love to know what he said, but the forest absorbed the mystery of his Japanese words that day. It was an intensely magical moment from which I derived the profound sense of place that inspired my work that day. My challenge is to capture structures, landscapes, and the people that inhabit them, as well as the endlessly fascinating way in which nature contains them, moving around, underneath, and through them in unpredictable and curious ways. I always think of how much I would like to return and revisit each site, decade after decade, to investigate the influence of time and try to convey that unique feeling through my images. Our sense of the world is related to where we have come from and the places where we have been. My life stories and experiences are an essential part of my photography equipment. As that, together with the environment in which I find myself, is precisely what informs the sense of place I feel when I turn up at a building to photograph it. Photography as a distillation of reality. Photographing architecture may sound quite specific, but the truth is it affords me the broadest possible view on the world, allowing me to treat landscapes, the built environment, and people with the same democratic eye. Ever-changing and lasting at the same time, the built environment leaves some of the more permanent imprints on our world. When people move, buildings remain. They stand and acquire the mark of time. Decay is the very last layer of beauty. As a building shows age, the signs of life with which it has been embedded start to emerge. By decoding these signs left by time, we uncover stories, insights into the vitality of human life. The mark of time, trees growing, materials fading, the traces left by inhabiting a space. That's the powerful stuff. Photographs are, by nature, made of time, much in the same way as you start rather than make a garden. The photographer starts a picture, and exposure to the natural alchemy of time gradually nurtures its growth, its context determining the way it is viewed and used. Photographing architecture, I find myself igniting that alchemical process as I stand at the point of convergence of time and meaning and capture the aliveness identity, and genesis of each building. History concentrated in one spot. A long, slow walk through the landscape of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Our sense of the world is related to where we have come from and the places we've been, experiences that help to create our life story. They inform how we sense place and how it feels when we arrive in a new environment. Photographing architecture allows me an incredibly broad view of the world, with permission to treat landscapes, people, and the built environment with the same democratic eye. When making this book, I wanted it to feel like a long, slow walk through the landscape of Aotearoa, New Zealand, shooting at various times of year. Over the span of a decade, I encountered what felt more like 12 seasons and not the calendar 4. This languid transformation shows up as long shadows and short days, hot, high overhead sun blasting through swathes of vast cumulus, sheets of frost cast onto the central Otago landscape, replete with an ice bow. Magical landscapes in the deep south of the Pacific Ocean, on the land of the long white cloud. Some houses in this book are built on seemingly unbuildable sites, meticulous solutions laboured by world-class architects and builders, their clients' precious dream confidently articulated using high craft and experimentation. Eventually, this long, slow, and intentional dance creates a new way of living, born from New World perspectives on Old World land. 30 houses spanning the small island nation in the Antipodes from Cape to Bluff. 30 New Zealand architects alongside a wealth of other skilled professionals who have created new ways for living in this landscape. You are here-ish. Landscapes are the context for a lot of what we do, much of it subconscious, like the horizon line we interact with day to day, the way the sun comes into our bedroom window on the weekends in summer. We feel like we know a place. We sense what this place is because we know that hill, that paddock, the way the stream meanders down to the estuary. When I turn up to photograph a house in a landscape somewhere, anywhere, it's the way the house interacts with its environment that first strikes me. And it's from then, with wonder and curiosity, that my first pictures are made. The relationship between the house and the landscape, gently asking questions that beckon me to explore and make pictures of my experience. It's then I'm able to create a story for the people that won't visit this place, to know what it felt like to be there. It's the landscape that sets the scene for what happens next, the ultimate creator of chance encounter. The traditional people of New Zealand, the Māori, call it tūranga waiwai, a place to stand where a person feels strong and at home. The courage to do nothing. So what do I think about when I turn up to a photo shoot, to this place? I think about calm and quiet. I like that we know what music is because of the silence between each note and how important it is to listen and wait. I think about my D, Margot and Charlie, and how grateful I am for their love and support. And I think about family photos and how important they are. I love what they reveal and how we revere those very important moments. I also think about finding new memes for my Instagram story. And I think about how well they go together with architecture and design. Architecture by itself is possibly quite serious. I think about being present and think about things like how we only see something because of its ability to absorb or reflect light. And then I try not to think and just be present. I think about lunch. What am I going to eat? It's so exciting. And I think about how school was really about eating my lunch and playing with girls, and how I had an enormous crush on my teacher. I think about engaging my other senses. I think we trust our eyes too much. The other senses are profoundly important in how we view a scene. Our eyes absorb light. They don't reflect it. And my brief to myself always is, what does it feel like to be here? I always spend time sitting still in the environment I'm charged with photographing. I listen as much as I watch. And for me, this is how I find out what is really in the space. I listen. I wait. And I watch. My work is as much about the landscape as it is the people that inhabit the structures. Nature is a container for these things. It moves around it, underneath it, and through it in unpredictable and curious ways. I think about the concept that time adds a layer of depth that cannot be faked. Photographs are by nature made of time. Started by the photographer and then exposed to the alchemy of time, to then become charged with meaning. I think about what I do is a lot like fishing. It's not called catching. It can't be about ticking off a list of shots. Photography, for me, is a lot about exploration and building a narrative. The house isn't finished until the photographer has been. I think about walking and, in a sense, getting lost, and how the pace of walking is in sync with the rhythm of our heartbeat. I walk on average 10 kilometres during a shoot day. I'd like to say carrying lots of heavy gear, but my assistant does that. Good on you, mate. I think about how I make it up as I go. We don't know what we don't know. Discovering knowledge through naivety. For me, it's always about learning by necessity. For me, it's that naive energy that's really important. Learning, applying, and absorbing what you need when you need it. I think about storytelling and about how important it is to make pictures that aren't too ambiguous or too descriptive. Too ambiguous and you risk confusing someone. Too descriptive and the viewer has nothing to engage with. I think about sense of place and how where we have all come from and where we have been informs the sense of place we feel when we encounter somewhere for the very first time. A place isn't a place. A place is a place in time. I think about beauty and how the last hard-earned layer of beauty is decay. When people move, buildings remain, They stand and gain the mark of time. They decay and show age. They become embedded with signs of life. I think about the photography workshop I had last year with Mike Kelly in Finland, and how the new workshop I have coming up in Japan in September, and how there are still 1 or 2 spaces available. Feel free to come and see me after this. Thank you.
Simon,
Magna.
are you teaching, are you doing any workshops on how to speak so eloquently?
We can cover that if you want.
Thank you for everything that you just enlightened us with.
You're welcome.
One of the things that really come to mind is there was a week or 3 days that you spent with Jordan this past year.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he came back and said was, I'm just surprised by how much I thought I needed versus how, let me say this correct. I don't want to minimize what you do in any way because
Sure.
It's amazing. But just how little you use to create these impactful moments with your images.
Mm.
When or what would you say leads you to kind of be a minimalist in the way that you bring out such emotion in every single one of your shots?
Ah, that's very kind, first of all, thank you. I really just enjoy keeping things really simple. It doesn't mean I haven't tried lots of ways of doing it. I just find it distracts me from really getting to the heart of why I'm there, which is to understand what the architect intended, what the atmosphere that they've laboured over really feels like, and try and capture that by being present, by tuning into really how it felt to be there. And for me, it works beautifully. You know, it's not everyone's approach, clearly, but for me, that works really well. Often I haven't even got any shoes on, let alone a tripod. But, you know, I'm using a lot of different pieces of equipment, just minimal amounts.
I took Simon's workshop in Finland, and I have to say, I didn't realize how connected to every distraction around me as I was until experiencing a couple of days with him on the island. To be able to kind of be in the moment and not distracted by social media or my kids crying or something like that, it was different. No tripod either. No tilt shift lenses.
You didn't have a tilt shift lens?
You convinced me to leave it in my my bag.
You did pretty well. Did you win one of the prizes? I think you might have.
No.
Whoopsies.
Hello, Simon.
Austin.
I have a lot of clients that are really in tune and really seem to be receptive to the idea of piecing apart kind of the emotional feeling of what they've created. And then I have some clients that seem to be a little more brass tacks, and maybe a contractor or something, and it's a little bit more about the logistics of getting it done. Do you have any recommendations on kind of how to bring those clients over to a position where they're giving you the space and the opportunity to continue to work creatively when they may be worried about things like efficiency and marketing, directives?
Yeah, I don't know any different. I just, predominantly work in New Zealand. I have about 5 big trips a year out of the country, and then over to Australia a little bit as well, just to keep things interesting. And it's full of Australians, so I try and minimise that. I don't know any different. We kind of, there's a bit more of a low-key approach that I bring to things, and that seems to attract a low-key response. And again, how much is enough? I've got some clients that really, they'll do it their way. They'll mark up a plan, and there's, a certain set of requirements they have. Others much less so. You know, the brief often from a lot of my clients is just make those beautiful pictures, you know, and then it's just the organization before the shoot. You know, I'm a lot about the preparation for the execution so that the day is the most enjoyable day I can have. If there's anything like turning up to a trampoline in the front yard, that's a problem. If the sprinkler goes off at 5 p.m. just as you're trying to get the winter sun setting, that's a problem. Should you have done something beforehand? Yep. So I'm a lot about preparation and doing the work on the shoot so that afterwards there's very minimal amounts of post, very minimal amounts of me paying my guy extraordinary amounts of money in retouch afterwards. I'm trying not to make him rich. Hope that helps, Austin. Yeah.
Regarding retouching, so most people know because I talk about it all the time. I assisted you in LA. Did you guys didn't know I assisted Simon in LA? No big deal. Thank you.
He was great too.
But I never saw the final images. But I know that throughout the day you photographed probably 500 to 1,500 frames.
It was about 550, I think, something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, what's your decision-making process like in the end? Like, are you sitting back digesting? I know we talked about this last year, but I don't remember. Like, are you sitting back, going through everything, digesting it? Like, what does that process look like? If you just kind of tell a story about what that might look like when you leave.
You mean afterwards?
Afterwards, yeah.
Right.
When you're going through everything.
Yeah, sure. Certainly during, there's not much thinking going on. There's just reacting to moments. And LA on that trip was full of interesting weather, which I love. Dark clouds and then bright sunshine, which was not very LA-like. So it was a really interesting day. It looked more like Wellington, where I'm from, rather than Los Angeles. Afterwards, I'm really just responding to, in terms of my selection process, really, does it respond or elevate how it felt when I was there, and that's it. And if it ticks that box, I can then turn that sort of wider shoot of 500 odd images easily down to sort of 80 or 90.
Sorry. And from there, are you maybe just doing kind of initial, I guess, like as thoughtful as you are, or like maybe not thoughtful or responsive as you are, but the presentation you just went through, it just has me at least thinking about just, I don't know, I guess the more of the feeling that a place gives you, like, you know, like you've been talking about. And I'm just wondering if your post-production process is like that too, is if you're just kind of sitting back, digesting, looking and staring, and then moving to the next photo, moving and staring, and then maybe coming back a week later and looking. Is it, am I making sense here?
Yeah, it's pretty minimal.
Okay.
I mean, I'd be an idiot too if I wasn't utilizing the technology, and of course, you know, I'm definitely doing that. But 90% of the retouch, or when I get my hands on them after the shoot, it's really a grading exercise. It's not retouch. I'll leave that for Khan, who is much better than that at that than me. But the grading part gets things pretty close. Like, that's how I would be happy sharing that cut with my clients. And then I always, like, they might get 80 odd pictures from me in a proof sheet, but I'll absolutely have at it and do my own edit of 10 or 12, maybe 20 if it's a big building, and, you know, how I saw it and what I think the crucial cut would be. And they love that. I think that's great that they can make their own selection for the raft of different contexts that they will apply, awards entries, websites, Instagram, all sorts of different things. And then they can also then look at how I saw it and go, well, you know, it's these 12. This is how I saw it. And so, you know, for most of my clients, that's the approach.
Two questions. Does everyone in New Zealand speak in prose poetry, or is it just you?
No.
All right. Second question, can you talk about that book that we saw, and where can we buy it?
Tanvir, thanks, mate. Love your work. It sold out in 3 months, and I had no idea that would happen. I simply set about creating a book that I would love and loved making, and it took a little while to make it. 3 months and it was gone. So I got to make the book I really wanted to make, and there was no compromise. Like, I worked with some great people who are much better at things like graphic design and print production than I am, and so they made me look good. And it's a really big book, like it's fucking massive. It's 5 kilos, and it is a coffee table all by itself. Early on in the process, Thames and Hudson in London got in touch. They somehow knew I was up to something. It's a mystery to me, but they said, "Is there anything we can do to help?" Basically giving me a nudge and going, "Can we do the book?" And I said, I'd already worked out the strategy, how it was being financed, the sponsors and the architects and everyone that was involved. So things were too far ahead for them to actually lift anything off us. And then the book came out, and not too much time later, it was gone again. I got another call from Thames and Hudson. They said, "We've seen the book. We couldn't make that book. We would never make something that big. And our version of your book would always carry a photo on the front. And we'd like to re-release it for you." I was like, shit, that's good. So we had a close look at the contract, because I'd never had that type of contract from Thames and Hudson before. That was a learning exercise all by itself. I had to go through IP copyright lawyers and with a fine-tooth comb. And what I discovered was that version of the agreement was what they gave people who probably wouldn't read it and just hoped that they would sign it. So we had a lot of toing and froing. We ended up with a contract that suited both parties. And now, to answer your question, Tanvir, the Thames and Hudson version of that book comes out in a few weeks. And it's being released worldwide, which is really great.
Hi, Simon. This is Eunice here.
Eunice.
I think the question that everyone has been waiting to hear is, how much time do you spend every day hunting for memes? And how many of those are, provided by your followers?
Oof. Okay, I thought we'd get to that. We'll have to go back in time. Pre-COVID, I'd been collecting memes for ages, just because, I like to laugh, and my friends certainly enjoyed me sending them the odd meme. So that was how it started. And then COVID meant that we're all at home a lot, and we could certainly do with a laugh during COVID. It wasn't a great time for a lot of people, although I was in a position to enjoy my farm and hang out with my dog for a while, so I was having a good time. And hit the ground running with about 30,000 memes. After COVID, I ended up with about 55,000 memes, and it's growing. I don't spend a lot of time on the toilet posting them. It doesn't take long at all. It's pretty quick, but I've got a lot of material. And fortunately for me, I get sent a lot. Like, Carlos won't admit to it, but he sends me shitloads. It's just ridiculous. Thank you, mate.
Hi.
Hello.
So your depth and your presence is quite profound, and the way you speak of your work is equally as such, which tells me that you love what you do, and if you approach it that way all the time, it's almost like you could do it without being paid. You just love it that much. So my question is, what do you do personally for work? Like, what would be your personal photography? Would that be family, going back to that, or is there something that you love just as much and do it for you?
I was told really early on when I started doing this that, and I'm still making it up as I go a little bit, just on the quiet. So the imposter syndrome is still loud and proud. I was told early on that I really needed to have personal work and commercial work by quite a few different photographers who were really well established at the time. And I kind of never quite understood why. The same person is showing up, so why would one be personal and one be commercial? So I see all of my work in the same way, and that's all personal to me. I make no distinction at all. And maybe that has affected how I view what I do and why I'm passionate about what I do and why, I would for sure do it for free. No question. Yeah. It's all personal work. Handsome man in the front.
Hi, Simon.
Hey, Zeph.
You've been quoted as saying Simon without boundaries is a loose unit. Can you describe some of the boundaries that might have challenged you over time?
Boundaries that have challenged me. I think Zeph is bringing this up because he's quite loose. He's
Not far off, sure.
he's from New York. I mean, fairly loose kind of place. Boundaries. The mentorships and the workshops are revenge for me to put boundaries on other people because I'm really terrible at putting them on myself, although from a distance it may not look like that. But deep inside my shoes, the socks are definitely coming off. It's an awkward place to be. But I give it a nudge, try my best. Thanks, Zeph.
Hi, Simon.
Hello, mate.
The conversation that we had in the past is that you don't have a distinction between shooting with tripod and handheld. Can you elaborate on that? I know the answer, but I think it's very interesting. Your approach on set is very interesting.
Right. Distinction. Well, I'm not thinking a hell of a lot when I'm on a shoot, so I'm just responding. And if it feels like a tripod is going to slow me down, then it's gone. If the lighting conditions allow for me to handhold, and there are things that are constantly changing, as they definitely do. We don't live in Florida down in New Zealand. It's the weather's changing every 5 minutes. So I'm as adept and probably even more comfortable without a tripod as I am with, but I'm certainly using both. It's just whatever the moment calls for. And my assistant, if they get that wrong, there's hell to pay. So they gotta jump. No, we have a fun day. I say that tongue in cheek.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi. Did you, kind of forgot my question, but did you always know that you wanted to be an architect, interior photographer?
I didn't even know what that was.
In 28 years of your career, which is a really wonderful long time, it's amazing.
Yeah. It feels like a really short time. I feel like I'm only just getting started, which is a really satisfying feeling. In the morning, when I first get out of bed, it doesn't feel like that, admittedly. But no, I really genuinely feel like I'm only just getting started. The way I taught myself, I didn't go to university or any postgraduate kind of education. I taught myself by walking city streets, rural back blocks, and I really just, from a place of curiosity, wanted to learn more about what we're all up to as humans. It's really from more of an anthropological, sociological perspective that I'm looking at what the hell are we all up to, where we work, where we play, and how that looks, It's really, for me, the grass doesn't get any greener than I wonder what this will look like as a picture. Over and over and over and over again. And architecture was the best fit because it's, yes, the architecture, and my clients probably don't want to hear this, but I'm not that interested in architecture. But I'm really interested in the bigger picture, and architecture is a very central part of that. So it's more about, well, it's also about the wobbly stuff, nature. It's also about the man-made and us within it. All three are vital ingredients in, in telling a really useful picture story, I think.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Thanks, you're welcome.
Hey, Simon. Me again.
Oh, Magna.
This is kind of a follow-up to Arturo's question. I think that you choosing between a tripod or handheld is just kind of a byproduct of who you are as an artist, as opposed to just an approach to the way that you shoot. As somebody that might have came to this conference, or in general, that is kind of afraid to fail and want to take the next step in their career to become a more accomplished photographer, what sort of advice would you give towards that?
It has to be about making the pictures you want to make. There's a lot of convention, there's a lot of expectation around how things should look, and the way we go about getting them. That you need all of this equipment, you need to be working with the architects. I mean, yes and no. Like, I think, I look at how I started, it certainly wasn't the right way to do it. It was just a way to do it, and I had no point of comparison. I just did it how I thought it should be done, and that meant I lived in a relatively poor place in South Auckland, and that would mean I had to get on a bus with some pretty ropey camera gear and save a bit of money, go and stay in a pretty shitty motel somewhere and walk the streets, photograph, seek out, find new buildings that were publicly accessible, because it's still illegal apparently to climb fences and photograph people's houses, I don't know. And photograph things how I thought they should be shot. Like, this is how I see it. And for someone who's, it's a pretty naive approach, but pretty useful approach. That worked really well. And then, and you were discussing that in the panel earlier as an approach, and I think it's fantastic. And I still do that when there's someone who I would like to work with that I don't yet. I'll go and find something that's accessible, and then it turns what was called earlier a cold call into a warm ego massaging call. Of course they want to see their building. Are you joking? And then find out what sort of coffee they drink and take a few prints in with some white gloves and a presentation box, and then I think you probably got an audience. So I think it starts with something that's authentic, something that's really you, something that's not caught up in expectation and convention, and do it how you think it should be done. That could be lighting it up the wazoo and 6 tripods and 18 lenses. If that works and that's how you go, then have at it. But it needs to be about how you think it should go. And then make the pictures you want to make. Because that's the work you'll get. We all know that. You get what you show.
Hello, Simon.
Hello, Mr. Kalish.
I was texting you, but you weren't answering.
Sorry, bud.
Couple questions. When you're spending an entire day, sunrise to sunset, at a location, at a home, it's something that's uniquely personal to the homeowner and to yourself. Do you find yourself following the light around as inspiration, or do you create a fictional narrative of what you might imagine? Maybe do you fall into like a dream state when you're shooting sometimes?
It's definitely a dream state because it's 5 a.m. and it's dark.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky to find where I'm going.
But I mean, do you fall in love with your house, your projects sometimes? You know, great portrait photographers and fashion photographers are like they fall in, you know, that some of the things I've heard is, you know, they fall in love with their subjects, and I wonder if that's true with you too. It seems like you do.
Yeah, I think it's a really flat hierarchy that's just naturally occurred to me. That's just how I approach it. What I mean by that is that I'm not there to have an opinion. My clients aren't paying me to have an opinion on what they've created. No one gives a shit what I think about it. But what they do care about is that I can make really beautiful pictures and respond to beauty and the layers of beauty that show up in that moment. And it's moment after moment after moment, from when it is dark, literally, when I arrive, till I leave again, when it's dark again. And absolutely fall in love with the fact that that's someone's dream that's come true. What I think about their house or that building is absolutely irrelevant. Just that it matters that I'm able to articulate through a series of pictures the beauty in those moments.
Hi, Simon.
Gigi.
You talked briefly about decay and time leaving its mark, but the flip side to that, with another mark that time leaves is just experience and the wisdom that you gain from that. So I'm curious how you've grown in your architectural photography practice over 26 years. How do you see things and experience things differently today, maybe than you did 20 plus years ago? Is there anything that jumps out at you?
Wow, all sorts of things. And my therapist would probably need to be here for half of it. Just so I could say, is it okay that I answer this? You know, I paid a lot of money here. God, that means I have to look back at like the 20-year-old me or the 25-year-old me, and that's quite scary, Gary. I'm sorry you asked that question. No, I'm just eternally grateful that things have gone the way they've gone, and it's a compounding experience. Like, I do feel like I'm only just beginning, but I'm so grateful for everything else that has come before it. It means that I can acknowledge certain parts of myself that I couldn't probably before. Someone described me as the opposite of chaos the other day, and I thought that's really flattering. And we gather a picture of ourselves through self-reflection for sure, and you and I have done a bit of that work, but we also gather knowledge of self through how other people view us, and that has a lot to do with it too. So I'm really grateful. It's probably the underpinning part of, if I was to look back from here. Yeah, really grateful.
You hovered over saying you also have imposter syndrome. I had that conversation with other photographers on a daily basis, but I think it'd be maybe refreshing to hear if you're willing to expand a little bit on that, what that looks like from somebody at your, I don't want to say level or anything like that, but just from where you sit, however you perceive yourself in the world. What is imposter syndrome? How does that take shape for you?
I think it just doesn't go away. You just become sort of friends with it. I think if it doesn't show up, that sort of energy that sits behind you, that overwhelm, that anxiety, that shit, can I really do this today? All of those feelings that showed up really early on have just never gone away, and I've taken it on as that's just necessary in the creative process, and I'm comfortable with it. And I'm happy that it's there. That's fine. I know I need it.
Hi.
Hello.
So this is kind of funny because I feel like this is like a triple question between Gary and Jordan and I. Like this is all kind of in the same vein. Saying we trust our eyes too much. I feel with the imposter syndrome, when we were less experienced photographers, we saw compositions and imagery that we absolutely fell in love with, and we shot, and we're like, this is the best thing I've ever done. And of course, over time, that changes, and we look back at the work that we did, we cringe, and we recoil, and we don't trust it anymore, what was in the past. Yep. Because what we're seeing in that moment, like you said, we're witnessing time. Yep. And that like really resonated with me personally. And because we're trying to convey the emotion and feeling that we felt in that moment to the audience that's going to be looking at that picture and want them to experience that in the same way we did as close as possible. I'm trying to convey this in a way that like makes sense, but it probably won't make sense. At what point do you feel that we trust what we have created, that we trust the image that we're making? So, and because I always feel that when I'm looking at an image, like I feel like, how much do I have to retouch this? How much do I have to like, at what point do I trust myself that this is good, that this is good enough? That beauty and emotion that I witnessed, that I'm seeing in that image because I saw it in person, like at what point do I trust that's going to be okay? And this is also aimed at you, Stephen, because I know because of what you said yesterday about me not trusting myself. Where are you? Yeah, yep, your fault.
Yeah, trusting yourself is, I mean, that's a lifelong pursuit, and I'm not sure if there's any finished place to go with that. Like, it's just, it just is. You know, the word is very useful in that sense. I think if you, at the end of a shoot, feel like you've poured yourself completely into it, and there's nothing left, that surely should make a reasonable editing day quite fun too. But if you feel like you're not able to completely pour yourself in to that day, for whatever reason, and there's always compromise, I get that, like there'll always be compromise, but I think for me it's always starting with the least amount of compromise possible, because it's always going to show up. So it's kind of almost sort of like a reverse engineering way of looking at the day, like what could go wrong here? Well, a number of things actually. So I try and allay that happening, do what I can, put someone to work who can make sure of these things, and then on the day I know I can just like pour it all in, and that absolutely for me makes an editing day really satisfying. So trust is a shifting sands arrangement at best. It's not a finished product, or could ever be. And we're always working on it. We're, being human is about that level of discovery, isn't it? Great question, thanks.
What have you done throughout your career to cultivate yourself as an individual, not just as a photographer, but with your name being on the door, so to speak, you're bringing your entire self to these projects? And that, like, how have you refined yourself and matured as a creative person?
I mean, there's a lot of, it's definitely still about making it up as I go, and trusting that that's enough. Like, it's risk and reward, and if people will make up their minds anyway about what you do, you may as well be yourself as much as you can in the process, right? And then someone will hate it, someone will love it. I mean, it's inevitable, I think. But I'll be happy with it. Like, that part I can take care of, the rest of it, not in control. Yeah.
Hi, Simon.
Eric.
So in your shots, New Zealand plays as much of a part of the story with the scenery, the lighting, the weather, as much as the subject itself.
Yeah, in this set of pictures, yeah. Yep.
For many of us, even here in the States, we don't have that luxury. Maybe there's houses close by or something. what do you suggest? Is it better for me to focus micro or macro? Where's my time best spent if I'm trying to get an exterior and tell the story similar to how you are, if I don't have the other elements?
In terms of selecting projects to shoot?
No, when I'm on a project and I'm spending my time finding those angles or the perfect way to describe the subject, if I don't have mountains, beautiful mountains or landscape in front of me, is it better for me to find focus or pull back and experience things in a broader perspective?
It's a really hard question to answer because it's so dependent on that place.
Or even with the interior space.
Yeah, I think I'm looking, there's the thing itself that's in front of us, the place, and where we find ourselves in that time and in that moment. But the question that always begs me is, it has to feel like something has happened or about to happen. It needs to be that tension there, or that possibility. And then I feel there's a hook. And then I feel like I can start, whether that's a 50mm lens or a 200mm lens. Irrelevant. Just so happens that I will often start with a 50mm lens. That's just how I like to make a beginning. But for me, it's about that narrative hook of something feeling like it's about to happen or has already happened. I wonder what happens next. Needs to be the most compelling feature of as many pictures that I make as possible. Yeah, that's the intention, Thanks. Thank you. Thanks a lot.